You know that classic question we've all thought about? What if I were stranded on a desert island? It's a fun little thought experiment. But what happens when one of the biggest YouTubers in the world, a guy famous for his insane stunts and bottomless budget, decides to, well, actually do it? This is the story of what happens when that epic idea runs headfirst into a very, very harsh reality.
We land on that island or we die. That was the feeling out there in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So how on earth did they get to this point? To really get what's happening in this life or death moment, we gotta rewind and see how this whole impossible mission got started.
Okay, so here's the plan. It sounds simple enough on paper, right? Mr. Beast and his friends get dropped onto a completely deserted island. Their only ticket out? They have to build a sailboat from scratch and somehow navigate across miles of open ocean to another island they can just barely make out on the horizon. Simple.
And that, right there, is the million-dollar question. It's the one tiny detail that takes this whole thing from a cool adventure to a seriously dangerous gamble. So what was the answer? Did they have any experience?
Nope. Zero, zilch. Other than their buddy Haas, who had some experience, not a single one of them had ever sailed before. And that just shows you how wild this plan was. We're talking about a crew of total beginners with pretty much just their own willpower deciding to take on the Pacific Ocean.
But, see, escaping wasn't even step one. Before they could even dream about sailing, they first had to just survive. And this island, it felt like it was actively trying to get rid of them, testing their sanity long before they ever had to test their strength.
While they were out there looking for stuff like bamboo to build their boat, they were constantly dodging some serious threats. We're talking about some of the most venomous snakes and spiders in the whole region. And all of that while dealing with a sun so brutal it was causing heat exhaustion and tunnel vision. This was no tropical getaway. It was a non-stop fight to stay safe.
And this struggle wasn't just some abstract idea. It was real, and it was physical. Nolan's quote here just says it all. Imagine that constant pain and itching. That kind of thing wears you down. It was draining their resolve before the main challenge had even kicked off.
All right, so with survival kind of managed, the team finally got to focus on the real mission, building a boat. But, not with shiny new parts from a store. They had to make do with whatever they could find on the island and whatever the ocean decided to give them.
And you gotta hand it to them. They didn't just start throwing logs together. They actually had a plan. They started out small, building a little prototype to see if their idea would even work. After that, it was just this grueling cycle of scavenging, tying, and building, all to turn a literal pile of sticks into something that could actually float.
And here's the crazy part. The very thing that's a huge problem for our oceans, pollution, ended up being their saving grace. They found these big plastic barrels that had washed up on shore, and they were perfect for flotation. They were literally turning trash into treasure.
This was the turning point. After days of just back-breaking work, they put the basic frame of the raft into the water and it floated. You can just feel the wave of relief and optimism in that quote. For the first time, this impossible mission actually felt possible.
So the boat's built, spirits are high, and now the final act begins, the voyage. And this wasn't just some casual paddle in a lake. This was an hours-long, brutal endurance test against the pure raw power of the ocean.
Their main enemy out on the water had a name, the Channel. This was this nasty stretch of water known for currents that wouldn't just push them forward, but would try to drag them sideways, out into the endless, empty Pacific Ocean. Getting across was going to take everything they had.
And that's where Haas, their one experienced guy, just lays it all on the line. At this point, the sail was useless. It was all down to pure muscle, just paddling as hard as they could. Their physical strength was the only thing stopping that current from winning and pulling them out to sea. And get this, by the time they even hit this most dangerous part of the trip, they had already been rowing for 7 straight hours. They were basically walking into the final boss battle on their last sliver of health.
And this is the reality of that fight. It's seasickness, it's your muscles giving out, it's just complete burnout. These quotes from the team show they weren't just a little tired, they were at the absolute end of their rope, physically and mentally, and they still had miles left to go.
But they kept going. Hour after agonizing hour, they fought that current. And then they got a break. The tide shifted and started helping them. After more than 8 hours out there, their destination was suddenly, incredibly, right there. It was within reach.
This timeline is just brutal. It's this amazing high of making progress. They're less than a mile away. And then it's this catastrophic drop.
After 11 hours of nonstop work, the one thing that had started to help them, the tide, turned against them. It was just cruel.
I mean, just look at this. It captures the pure agony of it all. They were half a mile from shore, close enough to see it clearly, maybe even close enough to swim it if they weren't so exhausted. But the ocean had decided to put up an invisible, unbeatable wall between them and the finish line.
And the emotion here is just raw. It's shock, it's heartbreak. After a whole week of survival, plus 12 hours of the hardest physical labor of their lives, to fail when you can literally see victory, that's a special kind of devastating.
But this isn't really where the story ends. Mr. Beast's reflection here tells you everything you need to know about him. It's not about the failure, it's about the feeling it gives him. It's a promise. The loss wasn't an ending, it was just fuel for whatever comes next.
Which really leaves us with this one big question. This whole thing was a test, right? Human determination versus an opponent that does not care about your YouTube video or how hard you've worked. And in the end, nature served up a pretty powerful and humbling reminder of who's really in charge